Hey, it's Amir, and today what we're going to do is dive into a subject that's really, really misunderstood, but that's really crucial for you to get to where you want to go in terms of your goals, in terms of developing your business. And the subject of this is, of course, strategy. It's one of the most misunderstood and misappropriated terms in the whole of business and marketing. And I've worked in marketing for a good 18 years or so. I run an agency for a good 9 or 10 years now. And the amount of times that the term strategy gets confused with things like tactics, channels, and goals is it's mind-blowing, really. So what we're going to do, we're going to clear all that up. We're going to figure out and dive into the correct role and definition of strategy, and then how we can build one in just 4 steps. So first of all, let's clear up what strategy is and what strategy isn't. So like I said earlier, it gets confused, the term strategy gets confused with tactics a lot, with channels and with goals. So for example, over the years, I've had CEOs and executives say that their strategy is to be number one. Well, that's a goal, it's not a strategy. You need a strategy to get to number one. I've heard people say that their main strategy is LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a channel, it's not a strategy, but you need a strategy to know if LinkedIn is a channel that you need to be on. And countless times I've heard things like Google Ads or Facebook Ads is our strategy for this year. Well, Google Ads, Facebook Ads are a tactic, but you need a strategy to know if that tactic is appropriate to help you to hit your goal. So with all of this misunderstanding and confusion around strategy, how can we make some sense of it? Well, we make sense of it with how we structure our work. Strategy starts with structure, and by that, I mean this is how we structure our work for best results. What we're going to do is start with a goal. So the goal is something that's overarching, right? Hopefully you can read that. That's our goal. Then underneath the goal sits our strategy. Our strategy is going to help provide us direction, intention, and so we can create deliberate actions towards that. It's intrinsically linked to our goal, our strategy is. And underneath strategy are our tactics. Okay? So tactics are literally the steps that we take that, if they're executed in the right way, will satisfy the conditions, the position of the strategy, which helps us to hit our goal. So let's run through a really, really quick example. Let's say our goal is to increase sales by 50% in a year. Let's be really ambitious, right? So we want to plus 50%. Now, a lot of people, once you have your goal, would run straight down to tactics and be like, right, let's build a landing page, let's get some Google Ads, let's get some leads in, right? But let's say you do that. Let's say a landing page, LP plus AD, ads, sorry about my handwriting. Let's say they are tactics that we just jump straight to. Well, what's the core messaging? What's the story that we're telling about why people should buy from us? Where's the coherence between the campaigns that we put out? You see, we don't have any of that without this, okay? So let's do, again, keeping it really, really simple, a really simple strategy. Our strategy is to be seen as the most trusted brand in the category. So trust. Right. So now that gives us clues as to what we should and shouldn't be doing in terms of our tactics. So now we almost have a filter. So we can say, okay, if this ad, which is about a price cut, for example, we're lowering our prices, is that going to help us to be seen as the most trusted brand in the category? Probably not. So we think, okay, so what might be? So then we have something to work around and work toward, because we know if we're seen as the most trusted brand in the category, we've got a greater chance of sales. So that means we've got a greater chance of hitting our goal. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm going to get rid of this stuff really quickly and talk through a really classic example of a strategy. It's from a book called This Is Marketing by Seth Godin, which if you haven't read, I really recommend you reading. And the brand is one I'm sure you've heard of, Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola's goal was really, really simple. They wanted more people drinking Coke, right? So they wanted sales to go like that. Their strategy was to be seen as part of the culture that made people happy and that everybody else was drinking it. So they wanted to be seen as part of the culture that made people happy and that everybody else was drinking it. I'll come to this bit in a section. It's really, really interesting. In a second, sorry. Their tactics were a huge number of adverts that all told this story. They went about it in different ways. So up on screen now, if I've edited this correctly, you should see some examples of Coke ads over the years. And you'll see how that strategic position of wanting to be seen as part of the culture that made people happy, no better example than that is the fact that they've associated themselves with perhaps arguably the happiest time of the year, which is Christmas. Associations is something we'll get to in a future video. But when people say, it's not Christmas until I've seen the Coca-Cola advert, you know that you succeeded in your goal, okay? So that their tactics were ads, be it billboards, digital videos, etc. And what they're showing are people enjoying Coke together, being happy. You tend not to see an isolated person who's looking sad and wistful drinking a Coca-Cola, okay? So their strategy of wanting to be seen as part of the culture that made people happy and that everyone else was drinking it helped to inform the content of these ads over the year, which has kept on continuously repeating and reinforcing this position because they knew if their product was seen as part of the culture that made people happy, and if people thought that everyone else was drinking it, would that help to increase sales? Yeah, absolutely. And of course it did. This bit here about making it seem as though everyone else was doing it is quite simple. You could say, yeah, social proof, but it goes a bit deeper than that. It's FOMO. Making people feel like they're missing out on part of the culture that makes people happy, makes potentially them happy if they're not drinking Coke. That's a psychological aspect that is a really important part of many strategic positions, but we'll get into psychology, behavioral economics in a future episode. What I want to do now is talk through the 4 steps of how anyone can build a marketing strategy. It's straightforward. It's going to take a bit of time to do, but if you do it, you will be one of the few that actually work with a coherent strategy in your category. I'm quite sure about that. So it's well worth putting the time in. So the first step to building your own strategy is you've got to do a diagnosis. You've got to diagnose. You've got to diagnose your situation. What that basically means is putting your brand, or if you're a freelancer or a solopreneur, putting yourself in context of the landscape around you. And by that, I mean, what are the alternatives that your audience, who we'll get to soon, has in solving their problem? What else could they do? And I'm not talking about direct competitors necessarily, but what else could they do to solve their problem? So, for example, we use a classic example of hammering a nail into a wall. You'd think that that's the only way of getting a picture to hang up right. Well, people don't want the nail in the wall, they want the picture hanging up. That's the job that they're trying to satisfy. Okay, so now, apart from nails that go into walls, you have adhesive ones. Okay, so there are alternatives, not different types of nails. Okay, so you've got to figure that out, and it takes a bit of research and looking into what other people and other brands are doing, but it's going to help you to switch the lights on. And what that's going to do is help you to spot different advantages that you've got that you didn't know you had previously, so you can see opportunities that you weren't previously aware of. Okay, so that's a diagnosis section. Step 2 is you need to set a goal. Pretty simple. What do you want? What's the change that you're trying to affect? What's the impact that you want to make? What are you trying to achieve, or where are you going? You've got to define this. And although I'm happy for things to evolve, I like thinking long term and being okay with things evolving over time. But it's important, if you're going long term, to break things down and bring it back to today, really. So what I mean by that is, let's say, to keep it simple, our goal is within 5 years to 10x our income, our sales, okay? So we want to 10x in 5 years. To make this workable, you should ask yourself, where do I need to be? If this is true, if I want to do this, where do I need to be this time next year to be on track for that? And then you bring it back again, say, right, okay, so if that's where I want to be in a year, where do I need to be by the end of this quarter to be on track for the year, which helped me be on track for the 5 years? And then bring it back even further. Where do I need to be at the end of this week? What do I need to do today to be on track for the end of the week? So I'm on track for the quarter, so I'm on track for the year. So everything is lined up, and you see how just by doing this already, just on part 2, you're breaking things down and giving yourself a series of interconnected tasks that are going to help you to get to your goal. Okay, so that's the goal. The third step is audience. The better you can define your audience, the better job you'll do at appealing to people. So you need to really understand who your audience is and understand what it is that they're trying to do. What problem are you helping them solve? What's your service or your product really helping them to do? And you've got to dig deep. It helps to talk to people that are maybe current customers if you've got customers already and you want to further define your audience, which I think is a really important thing to do. Just have a chat with them, because when you're making content, when you're writing ads, you can do so imagining that you're speaking to that person, if they're a representation of your target market. And it helps so much. It'll increase the quality of your ads, it'll increase the quality of your content, and you can't do that until you've seen the world through their eyes, you've empathized with them, and you've really figured out what it is that they're trying to do, what it is that they need help with, how are they trying to progress, and how can you help them to do that? Okay, so that's audience. And step 4, finally, we have your position, your strategic position. So like in the way that Coca-Cola wanted to be seen as part of the culture that made people happy, how do you need to be seen? How do you need to be perceived by your audience to give you the best chance of hitting your goal? That's important because it's going to provide the anchor and the filter for all of your content, your ads to go through. Let's go back to the trusted, being the most trusted. I think being the most trusted brand in a category is just the kernel of a strategy. I wouldn't recommend that just being your whole strategy. You've got to develop it a bit more. But let's say that it was. Just knowing that, you know that you can take deliberate steps by creating content that falls within that position, because you know that that strategy is going to greatly increase your chances of hitting your goal. So think about that position that you want to create in the mind of your audience. You can design it, and then you break it down and you can create content that ties into that, confident that that's the story that you're telling. That's what brand building means. Brand building happens in the mind of our audience, and we have to have an image, a position of what it is that we want to build. So I hope that's been useful. That's how you build a brand in 4 steps. I better write the last one in: position. Sorry for my awful handwriting. Have a go at it. Like I said, it's not easy to do. It's straightforward, but it's not easy. It's going to take some time. But if you do it, the rewards are immense, and you'll be not just outworking your alternatives in your competition, but you'll be outmaneuvering them. Okay, so have a go. Let me know how you get on, and I'll happily answer any questions you've got. Thanks for watching.